in a way that honored my family, in a way that honored myself, where I could sort of start to recover, because I was really, really burned out.
Yeah.
And it was, a couple months after that, that a woman wrote an article for the American Bar Association Journal. It's a lot of lawyers would look at this. And she said that the reason why women don't have upward mobility in law is because when they have babies, they don't work hard enough and they lose focus. And there was a firestorm in response. And I thought, oh my God, I cannot believe we're telling people to do that anymore. And that's really where people said, if you really want to write a leadership book, you need to write about a story behind the surveys that everybody knows is true, that so many people are living. And if not you, then who? And so I wrote, that's when I sort of stepped into writing the book and doing a lot more advocacy around gender equity in the workplace and at home.
That's, so much that is there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's once you've worked yourself to a place where you're in a senior position, you're extremely well respected, you may be very well paid, but not as well paid as people who are doing the same job, and you recognize that, it's a big risk to take a different role and a different tact and be willing to speak up for something that people aren't speaking up for.
It is. I would say, Shannon, that if I hadn't done it at that moment, I'm not really sure that I would have lived through the next decade. My life was run on such a razor thin margin. There was so little sleep. There was so much stress. I really wasn't happy anymore. And there was always going to be another crisis. There was always going to be another company that got into trouble. There was always going to be another CEO that needed me on the watch for 24/7.
Sure.
And I sort of decided, at what point do I choose me?
Yeah.
And I would say that this is probably a long time coming. Scariest thing I've ever done, or second scariest thing I've ever done in my life. But it was necessary. And I think that I had done well enough that at some point you sort of have to ask yourself, what's another year going to do?
Sure. And what was there one specific thing that made you comfortable enough or willing enough to make that decision, or was it just the compilation of everything that at some point there was a breaking point?
I think there are a lot of different factors, right? Like, we're in COVID, we're home with our families. I had a case going on where there's 1 month where I billed 100 hours a week. So I was home, right? I was sitting with my family at home. I'm in the dining room and I'm not even having dinner with them. It was a case that, again, like the gift that keeps on giving. So you're bringing a ton of money and you're really successful. I get a raise, I get a bonus. People are really excited, but there was no question about, how are you doing? Right? How is your team doing? Is there anything that we can do for you to make it easier, sustainable? When I told them that I was going to take a step back, I did get the questions of, can you go on sabbatical? Can you, take a leave of absence? What if you go to a reduced schedule for a while? And I kept listening very, very carefully to what were they going to do to change the system, right? Like, not just would I take a break and get back on the same field and play the same game the way I've been playing it. I've been speaking out for a while about.
That's Facing the Wind, Season 2 of The Grit Factor. Thank you for being here. As always, it's great to have you listening in. And if you enjoyed this episode, would you subscribe, leave us a review, and share with a friend? And make sure to pick up your own copy of The Grit Factor for candid stories and lessons from leaders in the vanguards of their fields. If you have a question you'd like to ask, send me a voicemail through the link at my website at thegritinstitute.com/podcast. See you next week.